How much does Google stand to lose if Samsung decides to make Bing the default search experience on its mobile devices? And also this week, Windows is set to get new AI smarts in an upcoming feature update. And Microsoft is hoping to reduce reliance on Nvidia in the data center with its own custom-designed Arm AI chips. According to an article in the New York Times this week, its reporters have seen internal messages at Google which suggest that it might be in panic over threats that Samsung is considering making Bing the default search experience on its mobile devices. Now, Samsung currently accounts for about $3 billion worth of revenue for Google every year, so that would be a considerable chunk of change that Google faces to lose if Samsung makes this decision to pivot to Microsoft. Now, it's interesting that Google is looking to redevelop its search experiences, actually starting from scratch completely, but they also have a project called Maggie at the moment, I assume that's how you pronounce it, where they're going to add some AI features to the existing search experience. Now, we've seen some of that already happen with Google Bard. Now, of course, that got a really mixed response when it was first released in January alongside Bing Prometheus, which is their kind of chat GPT-like features that they've already added to search. And while they're in preview at the moment, anybody who wants to use it can get access. And quite a few people have been switching over to Bing as far as I can understand. So Google has these two projects, one that's to basically redevelop their search engine and the search experience for end users from scratch. We won't see that for some time, and we don't really know what the details of that are yet. And Maggie, which is to build on top of the existing search, and that experience should be available in preview within the next month or so. Now, I've been using the AI integration in Bing over the last couple of months, and it's pretty good. Now, while it doesn't quite offer the flexibility of things that you can do with ChatGPT, this is really about search more than it is anything else. It offers a lot of the features that you've come to expect with ChatGPT, and even some more things that are quite useful, like offering citations and references to the information that it actually finds so that you can easily link back to the original source. So at this point in time, it's really about winning hearts and minds and gaining control over that initial inertia over these new features in search. And while, of course, Google still has the market share for search, the lion's share of that market, Bing is slowly encroaching on that, and it's way ahead in terms of its AI integration at this stage. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. As I said, I'm a big fan of what Microsoft is doing with Bing, and if Samsung does decide to ditch Google on its devices, then I think Google could be in trouble, especially if other device manufacturers, significantly Apple, decided to follow suit. So let me know in the comments below if you've used Bing and the AI that's built into it. If you download the Bing application for Google or for iOS, you actually get those ChatGPT features in there as well. So you can try it on mobile today, even if it's not the default experience on your device. So just let me know what you think about that. Would you switch to Bing as the default search experience? I'd be really interested to find out. Now, we know that Microsoft has been working on trying to improve the Snap feature in Windows 11 over the last couple of months from what we've seen in the Windows Insider builds. But I think I saw it first of all on Windows latest this week. Apparently, recently revealed by Phantom of Earth on Twitter, is that they're looking at building some, according to Windows latest, some AI features into what it's going to be calling Smart Snap. So while you can at the moment, of course, snap windows left and right and top and bottom or whatever configuration you want if you've got a large enough monitor, and it kind of gives you some potential layouts that you might choose from while you're doing that, those groups of applications that you have laid out are completely lost if you need to log off and log back on again or restart your machine. Now, what this new feature is supposedly going to do is remember, I don't know whether it's just going to be a history or the most frequently used or the most recently used only layout, so that you can quickly get those snap layouts of your windows back into place. Now, I don't really know whether this is artificial intelligence, that's what a lot of publications this week have dubbed it, or whether it's just remembering your snap layouts and offering you a bit of a recent history, or exactly how this works under the hood. I don't know. But I suppose, this is welcome. There are some other features coming into this kind of new smart snap experience, potentially at least, that we've kind of seen hinted at in insider builds. And I think one of the most interesting is a search for open apps. So when you're basically snapping a window and it offers you a suggestion of what you might snap in the empty space, apparently Microsoft is looking at a feature where you would actually be able to search for applications, assumably by typing or maybe voice activated. And it's going to use OCR, so that's optical character recognition, to kind of understand what you have open in each window. Now, I think this is really interesting because quite often I'm looking for something. I know I have it open somewhere, but I'm just not sure where it is, especially in browser tabs, because there's so much open on the desktop at any one time. And anything that's built into Windows that would help me to find that open window, wherever it happens to be, has to be a good thing, even if that starts out in the smart snap feature that's going to hopefully be part of Windows 11 or maybe Windows 12. So the only thing that really concerns me at this stage is OCR. Well, if you need to run that on every single window that you have open, I imagine that's probably quite a lot of processing power. So it might be something that you need, an AI chip for in the device in order to have access to that. We'll have to see how that pans out, or whether we ever see this feature come to light. I also think these things that they're building into Smart Snap really ought to apply to virtual desktops as well. So for instance, one of the reasons I don't use virtual desktops is that every time I log off and log back on again, I have to open all of those applications again and place them onto the right virtual desktop. And of course, that's something that I'm just not going to do. So I tend to avoid using virtual desktops, which is kind of a shame. There are other reasons why I don't really use virtual desktops very often, but I think that's one of the biggest, is that it just needs to work in a way that it's able to reset those desktops whenever I restart or if I have to log off and log back on again. Now, Apple is busy working on its next version of iOS, so iOS 17, and apparently iOS is going to allow sideloading of applications in the next version. Now, this is to do with the European Union Competition Act, and essentially they're forcing Apple to allow anybody to be able to install an application. So developers don't have to go through the iOS store. Now, that of course poses a problem for users and for Apple. So if developers don't have to go through the store, that means that Apple loses out on the fee that they take from developers. And also it means for end users that potentially they could be prone to picking up malware, viruses, if they're downloading and installing applications from, untrusted locations. Now, apparently, Apple is considering applying a verification system to anything that you download outside of the store that has to be met before you're allowed to sideload the application on your device. And that would help to protect users. But Apple is saying, well, we would charge for the verification. And that's much like it works on macOS at the moment. You can download applications outside of the macOS store, but you have to have them go through that verification system first. So they might do something similar for the iPhone. So while I understand, of course, the EU may have the best of intentions, don't they always have the best of intentions, but there's always downsides to this. And I think especially for security and privacy for the end user, if you allow, applications to be installed from any location, there's always the risk that you're going to install something that is not really what you want to have on your device. And of course, Apple really prides itself in that secure ecosystem. If you compare it to Android or Windows in its current state, if you don't have things like smart app control enabled on the system, then you've got basically just the Wild West where you can download, install anything. And of course, people do, they don't always understand that they could be downloading something that could be harmful to their device. So it strips away a lot of those protections, and I think Apple is right to think about a verification system for iOS as well. So it emerged this week that Microsoft is working on its own ARM chip specifically for AI in the data center, and this is called Project Athena. Now, the problem that Microsoft and other organizations like OpenAI are having at the moment is that in order to process these large language models, they need a specific kind of chip, basically a GPU on steroids, that are essentially produced just by Nvidia at the moment. Now, one of the problems is that, like any other kind of hardware, there's a big shortage of these chips, and they're actually going on eBay for anything up to $40,000 a time because of the shortage. And this is a big problem for Microsoft and other companies. So Microsoft is looking to develop its own chip to reduce its reliance on Nvidia and to essentially spread those chips around its own data centers where it needs that particular capability, and to share that technology with OpenAI, the company that's behind ChatGPT and that Microsoft has a stake in. And apparently Microsoft and OpenAI need about 30,000 of these chips. Now, as part of this news, it seems that Microsoft could be looking to put this chip into its own Surface devices at some point in the future. But remember, at this stage at least, this is just about the AI processing, which is a specific kind of processing. It's not about the main central processing unit, something like Apple has with its M1 and M2 chips. But I do think that Microsoft, if they're developing these ARM-based chips for AI, why not go the whole hog and actually develop ARM chips as well, potentially for the Surface line, not just AI. Now, of course, Microsoft and Qualcomm have some kind of thing going on where they had an arrangement, which I think that's come to an end, and now Qualcomm are looking to develop chips based on a different technology, which apparently is going to, at least in the next year or two, rival the M1 and M2 chips that come from Apple. But that's all just hearsay at the moment, and we'll see whether that actually comes to fruition. I suppose it will, of course, but it's just going to take some time. So it's interesting that I believe it was the head of OpenAI said this week that the era of large language models is already over, and essentially just making them larger and larger isn't necessarily going to improve AI technology, that we just need to actually enhance the models that we already have. But assumedly, of course, we're still going to need these chips to generate models and keep the models that we have up to date. Now, I know a lot of people are saying Windows on ARM is dead and all the rest of it. Of course, Windows on ARM cannot be dead. That's just, that would be a really problematic thing for Microsoft. First of all, in the data center, because, they really need to have these chips that just use less resources because of the cost of energy these days. And, that really needs to be something that Microsoft works on, and they're able to continue to scale the data centers that they have. So Microsoft making its own ARM chips, even if it's just for AI at this stage, could have a significant benefit in the data center and for end users. If you found this video useful, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a like. And I'm going to leave a video now on the screen about Bing Prometheus, and that's the technology Microsoft has built out for the AI search features in its own search engine, where I dig into a little bit more detail. But that's it from me this week, and I'll see you next time.